Kids are a nuisance. Go to a facility. I don't have a mother, okay? My name is Olivia Smith. I'm still in the 5th grade, living with my dad and mom, the 3 of us. My dad is really kind, and on his days off, he takes me out to play. My mom acts normal when dad is around, but when he's not, she seems cold and somewhat indifferent, making it a bit hard to talk to her sometimes. See you later. As usual, Dad goes to work early in the morning. While eating breakfast, I said goodbye to him. Looking at the clock, it's almost time for me to go to school. I need to change quickly, so I hurriedly finish my breakfast. Thanks for the meal. After eating, I place my dishes in the sink and head to my room to change. Hold on, my mom stops me, pointing at the sink. Who's going to wash these, huh? Her eyes are cold, almost angry. Usually, I just change and go to school, but I felt like I'd get scolded if I did that. I'll wash them, I muttered. She suddenly yelled, What? I can't hear you when you speak so softly. Suddenly, my mother yelled angrily. My body flinches, but I felt like it was my fault, so I apologize. Sorry, I'll wash them. Humph, of course you should. From now on, take care of your own things, okay? While angry, my mom threw her apron on the sofa and went to her room. I realized I should take care of my own things, as she said. I washed the breakfast dishes and left the house. At school, while talking with friends, the topic of parents came up. Hearing their stories, it seemed everyone's moms were kind, and even though they scolded them, "What's your mom like, Olivia?" suddenly asked by a friend, I found myself at a loss for an answer. But I thought maybe my mother's coldness was just a misunderstanding on my part. Perhaps she was in a bad mood because I hadn't been taking care of myself until now. So I answered that she was very kind. So I said she was very kind, my friend said. That was nice, but I felt conflicted. I'm home. When I got home, my mom wasn't there. Maybe she went shopping, I thought, and started my homework in my room. Soon it got dark outside, and it was usually dinner time, but Mom hadn't returned. Then I heard noise at the front door and the sound of the fridge opening. When I peeked into the kitchen from my room's door, there was my mom, hungry. I went to the kitchen and greeted her. "I'm back," she replied quickly without turning around, still seeming in a bad mood. "What's for dinner?" I asked, smiling, but this seemed to upset her. She turned around and looked furious. "What didn't I tell you to do things for yourself, huh? Dad's about to come home, and I'm busy making dinner." I couldn't say anything more, and as I was about to make instant ramen, Dad arrived. "I'm home," hearing Dad's voice, Mom quickly took the instant ramen from my hands. While I was still unsettled by her behavior, my father came into the kitchen. "Oh, are we just starting dinner?" Seeing my kind dad, I felt like crying. "Welcome home. I went shopping late today. I'm making dinner now. Just wait a little longer, Dad and Olivia." My mom's face softened. I wasn't sure if she was still angry, but the thought of eating the dinner she made me happy. Later, we had dinner as a family, and I had a fun time playing games with my dad. Maybe Mom was just in a bad mood for a bit. I fell asleep thinking that if I took care of my own things properly, maybe she wouldn't get angry anymore. From the next day, I made an effort to take care of my own things. I washed my breakfast dishes, folded the laundry that had dried, and put it away in the closet. I vacuumed my room, and when Mom came home late, I made myself instant ramen, thinking that this would surely earn me praise from her. It made me smile. The Mom still didn't praise me. She scolded me less when Dad was around. We could enjoy our time together as a family of 3. I was happy about that. One time, I heard something like a groaning sound and woke up to find it was the middle of the night. Thinking it might be a ghost, I burrowed under the covers. The groaning continued for a while, and then I heard the sound of an ambulance. The sound of the ambulance stopped nearby, making it clear that it had arrived close to our location. As I wondered who it could be, I heard commotion at the front door. It was at this point I realized, for the first time, that the ambulance had stopped in front of my house. Jumping out of bed, I saw that my father was being carried out. "Dad!" I cried out and ran towards him. Dad looked pale and sweaty, obviously in pain. Tears came to my eyes, and I clung to the paramedics, begging them to save my dad. They gently told me they were taking him to the hospital. Mom and I rode in the ambulance, and when we arrived, Dad was rushed away. Mom and I waited in the family waiting room. I was filled with anxiety, wondering what would happen if something happened to Dad, if he would be gone. But Mom, sitting next to me, was just handling her phone, seemingly not worried. I sat there alone, crying, waiting for someone to come and tell me that everything was going to be all right. I'm not sure how much time passed, but after a while, the doctor came over to us. Mom and the doctor had a complex discussion, and all I could understand was that Dad had been diagnosed with an illness and needed to stay in the hospital for a while. I was shocked to know that Dad had to fight a disease, even though I should be relieved that the worst didn't happen. For a while, we didn't return home. Mom and I first went back to the house. After preparing for Dad's hospital stay, Mom went back to the hospital. Left alone at home, I lay in bed unable to sleep. It was early morning when I got home, so it quickly became bright outside. School. I had to go to school, but I wasn't in the mood to go. I didn't feel like eating anything and just stayed in my blanket. "Aren't you going to school?" Mom noticed me around noon. She didn't scold me for not going to school, but seemed in a hurry and left the house quickly, probably because she needed to go to the hospital. I hadn't eaten anything since morning, so I went to the kitchen. There was some rice left in the rice cooker, so I ate it with the leftovers from last night's dinner. Then in the evening, Mom came back. She had bought some packed lunches. "Eat that for today. I'd also bought some instant noodles for you to eat from tomorrow." "Okay." "Thank you." I thought I shouldn't be a burden to Mom since she's busy with Dad's situation, so I listened to her. The next day, I ate instant noodles for breakfast and went to school. My friends asked why I was absent yesterday, and I lied, saying I was feeling unwell. The teacher seemed to know the situation and spoke kindly to me. When I got home, Mom wasn't there. She must be with Dad, so I started my homework. I wanted to see Dad, too. I thought about asking Mom to take me to see him on the next holiday. While I was doing my homework, the phone rang. I was the only one at home, so I answered it. "Hello." "Oh, Olivia, what are you doing?" It was Dad on the phone, and hearing his voice made me tear up. "Dad, are you okay now?" "I want to see you." As I cried, my dad gently smiled. "Sorry to worry you. I'm okay now." "I want to see you too, Olivia." "It'd be nice if you could come with Mom." "Okay." Okay. I'll ask Mom." "Oh, right. Is Mom there?" Dad's question made me puzzled. Mom wasn't at home. I had assumed she was at the hospital with Dad. Mom's not here. Maybe she's at the hospital. Dad seemed to realize something and spoke evasively. "Oh, right. She just left a while ago. She should be back soon." "Olivia, have you had anything to eat?" "Yeah, Mom bought me some instant noodles and stuff." When I said that, my father fell silent for a moment, then said, "I see," and started talking about something else. After talking to Dad for a while, I heard the front door open and told him Mom was back. Dad asked me to hand the phone to Mom, and I did. Mom seemed a bit shaken as she took the phone and started talking to Dad. I went back to my room, noticing the smell of cigarettes on Mom, wondering where she had been. The next day, Mom asked if I wanted to go to the hospital with her. I said yes, and although she looked a bit hesitant, she took me. Seeing Dad after a long time, he was connected to an IV, but smiled as soon as he saw me. "Olivia, you came." I hugged him. Seeing Dad looking well made me want to cry, but I was so happy to see him. After talking with Dad for a while, Mom said it was time to go, and we reluctantly left the room. Dad waved at me with a smile, telling me to come again. Little did I know that would be our last conversation. Dad's condition suddenly worsened, and he passed away quickly. I couldn't believe Dad was gone, and dressed in black as Mom instructed, we went to the funeral. Many people came to say goodbye to Dad. Seeing Mom's composed response, I wondered if Dad was really gone. As I stood in a daze at the edge of the funeral hall, someone approached me. "Hey, aren't you Olivia?" I turned around to see a woman who looked a bit like a gal standing behind me. Unsure who she was as I looked puzzled, she sat down next to me. "It's been a really long time, hasn't it? I'm your aunt, Olivia. I'm your dad's sister." When she said that, I noticed she did resemble my dad. I didn't have any memories of my aunt, but I remembered Dad talking about his sister. "Aunt?" "Yes, aunt. Don't I look like your dad?" She laughed, and her face was indeed just like my dad's. Suddenly, she hugged me tightly. "It's okay to cry now. You've been so strong, Olivia." I didn't realize I was crying, but my aunt's words made more tears come. It felt like the first time I truly understood that I wouldn't see my dad again. After my aunt comforted me for a while, I thanked her and went to get a drink. When I entered the room, Mom was there. Seeing my tear-streaked face, she said, "What? You cried? What an unsightly face." Her cold words hurt. "Aren't you sad, Mom?" I asked, unable to understand why she didn't seem to mourn. "What's the point of being sad? He's gone now." Her indifferent words made me shiver. Were all the times we laughed and had fun as a family of 3 just an illusion? Did Mom hate Dad? As I stood frozen, my aunt came over. "Oh, my sister-in-law, long time no see," my aunt said cheerfully, and Mom's expression changed. "Oh, long time no see. Hey, is there anything I can help with?" No, there's nothing." Well then, Olivia, let's go over there," my aunt said, leading me away. From the look on my mother's face, I could tell she was uncomfortable with my aunt. Afterward, I stayed with my aunt until my father's funeral was over. "Olivia, we're leaving now," my mother said, coming to get me. After a while, my aunt had been holding my hand the whole time, but she let go as we prepared to leave. She looked a bit sad. "Olivia, see you later." "Yeah, see you," I replied, feeling reluctant to leave. As we stepped outside, an unfamiliar car pulled up. Sorry for the wait, a man, seemingly an acquaintance of my mother, opened the car door. There was a stranger in the driver's seat, and I hesitated to get in. Reflexively, "Don't dawdle, get in." My mother spoke in a tone I had never heard before, and I reluctantly got into the car. The car drove in the opposite direction of our home, and I just watched the passing scenery outside, feeling a bit scared, not knowing where we were going. "We're here. Get out quickly," she said as we stopped in front of a large building in an unfamiliar area. "Mom, where is this?" I asked, but she just lit a cigarette and replied, "Kids are a nuisance. Go to a facility." What? I couldn't comprehend what was happening as my mother and the unknown man drove away, leaving me behind. I tried to chase the car for a while, but obviously couldn't catch up, and I gave up when I felt lost and unsure where to go. I returned to where I was left. Just then, a car pulled up beside me, and the window rolled down to reveal my aunt. "I can't believe this is happening, Olivia." "Get in." Relieved to see my aunt, I quickly got into her car. She patted my head, and I quietly cried, finally feeling the tension release. "How many times are you going to cry today? Poor thing." As I continued to ride in my aunt's car, we arrived at a house. It seemed to be my aunt's house. I went in as told, and a man's voice greeted us cheerfully. "Welcome back." I instinctively hid behind my aunt, who laughed and reassured me it was okay. When I hesitantly looked at the man, a young man stood there smiling at me. "Sorry, did I startle you?" "I'm this lady's husband, your uncle." He extended his hand for a handshake. His kind face reassured me, and as I shook his hand, he smiled again. "You must be hungry, right? Dinner's ready. You gotta eat a lot to grow big." "You're noisy like a mother." I laughed along with their cheerful conversation. As my stomach grumbled, I felt embarrassed, and they both laughed heartily. We then enjoyed a delightful dinner together. After dinner, I was offered a bath, and they even had pajamas ready for me. Then, invited to the living room, I found they had prepared hot milk. "Hot milk? Aren't you a bit old for that, Olivia?" "What? Elementary school kids love hot milk, right? Or not?" I laughed at this conversation, feeling very comfortable. They laughed along with me. Then they asked me to sit down with my hot milk to talk. "Hey, Olivia, how about becoming our child?" I was about to drink my hot milk and choked on his words. "What? Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said it so suddenly." My uncle patted my back as my aunt laughed heartily. "Become our child? Do you want to go back to a mother like that?" My aunt's words made me think hard. I didn't hate my mother, but thinking about what happened at home, my dad, and being left behind, I was honestly scared to go back to my mother. Actually, your dad had talked to me. I was surprised to hear my dad's name. My aunt explained further. The man with my mother was her affair partner, and my dad had realized she was cheating. He was very worried about me when his illness was discovered, and he thought he might not have long left. He asked my aunt to take care of me after he was gone. Hearing this, I couldn't stop crying, longing to see my dad again. Your dad loved and cared for you so much. Her warm touch made me internally shout thank you to my dad multiple times. My dad, whom I loved dearly, my dad who always played with me. I decided I wanted to be strong for him. "I want to stay with you and Uncle." My aunt and uncle were delighted. Staying with them would require various procedures, and it might take a while, but they said I could stay without worry. I decided to do my best to help my aunt and uncle. I helped with breakfast and dinner, cleaned the bathroom and toilet, and they started to worry that I was doing too much. "You should play like a normal elementary schooler," they said, and I decided to do my homework instead. "Olivia, were you always doing housework at home?" my aunt asked during dinner. When I nodded, my uncle hugged me. "You've been through a lot for an elementary schooler." "Yeah, helping out is one thing, but I was worried you were pushing yourself too hard." Indeed, I might have been trying too hard to earn my mother's praise. I realized I might have been trying too hard to earn my mother's praise. I became silent, thinking about my efforts that were never appreciated. My mother probably never cared about that. "You don't have to worry about anything here. We'll accept your help, but what you should focus on the most is friends, school, and yourself. Take care of yourself," my aunt advised. Her words deeply resonated with me, and my uncle, teary-eyed, nodded repeatedly. I felt so happy to be with them. 2 weeks after my dad's funeral, I was called to the school staff room. Wondering what it was about, I was told my mother had called the teachers. Probably didn't know the full situation, thinking that the teachers would be troubled if I didn't answer. I tried to control my trembling hand as I picked up the phone. "Hello, Olivia. Answer the phone quickly. I heard my mother's voice yelling as she used to. Where are you right now? You're not at the facility I left you at. I couldn't find my voice and remained silent. Are you listening? Well, never mind. I'm coming to pick you up, then the allowance will come in. Mama needs money right now. Hearing my mother's words, my feelings instantly turned cold. I was frustrated to think I had sought love and praise from such a person, and that my father had been betrayed by her. Now I have my aunt and uncle, a place that's important to me, and my beloved father watching over me. I can be strong. I don't have a mother, do I? Before I knew it, I had said that to my mother. What? What are you talking about? Maybe you have the wrong person. Goodbye, then. Wait a minute. I hung up the phone on my own. The teacher next to me was surprised, asking if it wasn't my mother, and I replied it was a wrong number. This call was treated as suspicious, and the school issued a caution. Thinking my mother might come at dismissal time, I called my aunt from the school's public phone. She said she would come right away and did. She explained the situation to the school, and they contacted child services. When I got home, my mother had indeed come to pick me up, but the teachers handled it, and she left reluctantly, looking bitter. After that, my mother didn't storm the school, but just to be safe, my aunt or uncle would come to pick me up before dismissal time. I felt sorry, but my aunt and uncle told me not to worry about it, smiling. Thanks to my aunt and uncle, I'm spending happy days at school. The teachers care for me, and I feel grateful to have so many allies around me. Then one day, a while later, the phone at home rang. I've been answering phone calls at my aunt and uncle's house, so as usual, I picked up the phone. Hello. The voice I heard was one I didn't want to hear. Oh, isn't this Olivia? So you were there after all. I froze as I immediately recognized my mother's voice. I wondered how she knew I was here. Nobody should have told her. Stop staying there and come back. Things are tough here. My mother spoke unilaterally, not waiting for my response. According to her, her affair partner's company had gone bankrupt, and they were out of money. She needed me to be with her to receive government allowances for living expenses. She was apparently in a de facto marriage with her affair partner, and considered leaving him if they couldn't survive financially. The situation was confusing to me, but what I understood was that she needed me just for the money. She must be really short on money if she had also called the school. As I remained silent, my mother grew increasingly irritated. Then suddenly, the phone was taken from me. Surprised, I turned around to see my aunt standing there, smiling at me. However, in the next moment, her face turned stern. At least respond to me. Are you listening? You're so loud and annoying. You should know I can hear you. The voice of my mother on the other end of the phone fell silent. My heart was racing. Aren't you ashamed to call your own daughter only for money, telling her to come back for that ridiculous? What do you think Olivia is? What's it to you? She's my daughter. Give her back. Who left their daughter at the front of a facility? Don't talk such nonsense. I'll call the police. Say she's been kidnapped. Go ahead. We have evidence of the terrible things you've done to Olivia. Actually, please do it. Might resolve things faster. Listening to my aunt and mother argue, I felt a bit down, thinking I was causing trouble. Then my uncle, who had apparently come back at some point, patted my head from behind. It's okay. Leave it to us. It's time for the adults to handle this, he reassured me, pulling me away to make more hot milk. You like hot milk, don't you, Olivia? You drink it a lot? Yes. I thought it was delicious the first time I tried it. That's why I like it. Hearing this, my uncle smiled happily. After a while, my aunt came back to the living room, noticing my worried look. My aunt ruffled my hair to reassure me. What's with that face? "There's no problem. She's no match for me," she said. I smoothed my hair and thanked my aunt, then helped with dinner preparation. Since coming to my aunt and uncle's house, I realized how enjoyable helping can be. A few days later, when the phone rang, it was my mother again. Even though my aunt and uncle said I didn't have to answer any more, I wanted to be of some help to them. "It's Olivia, right? Mama really needs help. I'm in trouble," my mother said. As I said before, I don't have a mother. How heartless. I raised you, didn't I? Have you forgotten the fun days we spent together with your dad? Hearing my dad's name made me feel both startled and annoyed. I had a lot of fun when I had a dad, but the kind one was only my dad. You abandoned me. Surprisingly, I raised my voice. I felt a sense of relief, as if my feelings had cleared. I argued back, "No matter what my mother said, you're my child, aren't you?" "I didn't abandon you. I just left you there," my mother replied. "You said kids were a nuisance and to go to a facility. You said it while laughing. That's not a mother." I was forced to say that. "It's not my fault, but you abandoned me, so I don't have a mother. My mother is my aunt, and my dad is my uncle and my dad in heaven. You've been brainwashed. Stop complaining and come back," my mother insisted. Before I knew it, I was crying while arguing with my mother. But strangely, I felt lighter, as if I had been holding back a lot. "At least let me live in the house with you. I can't even eat if this continues," I pleaded. "That's impossible." "Don't bother the people I love," my mother replied. Suddenly, feeling someone's presence, I turned around to see my aunt and uncle standing there. My aunt patted my head and praised me for speaking up. My uncle, teary-eyed, nodded in agreement. Then my aunt took over the phone and seemed oddly happy while talking to my mother. My uncle said that he was happy to hear my words. He thanked me for calling him Dad. I had said it spontaneously, but their happiness made me happy too. For a while there was no contact from my mother, thanks to my aunt and uncle. I guess after getting used to living with them, my aunt bought me a smartphone. I was so excited to have my first smartphone. Exchanging contact information with friends and having more fun than ever. One unusually quiet day, the house phone rang. Since the incident with my mother, the school had been contacting my aunt and uncle's smartphones, and my friends called me online as I had been given a smartphone too. Wondering who it could be, I answered, "Hello." The person on the other end sounded very down, in contrast to my high spirits. "Hello, it's me." At first, I didn't recognize who it was, almost thinking it was a wrong number. I was about to hang up, as we're told not to talk to strangers. But then she said, "It's Mom. You've forgotten your mother's voice." Oh, yeah, I realized it was indeed my mother, but her voice lacked its usual vigor, making it unrecognizable. "You're in 6th grade now, right?" Nobody's home right now," I replied. My mother then started crying. I didn't know what to do, but couldn't bring myself to hang up. "Actually, I'm in the hospital. I've gotten sick," my mother confessed. Hearing about her illness made me think of my dad. Now remembering him doesn't make me sad. Instead, I feel energized by the good memories he left me. There's no one to take care of me. Can you take care of me? Besides, I can't afford the hospital bills. Can you ask your aunt to help? Say something, my mother pleaded. "Why should I, a stranger, take care of you?" "What?" I replied. "I'm also refusing to pay for the hospital bills. I won't tell my aunt and uncle. You need to stop this nonsense." "Don't get cocky," I added. "She sounds too energetic for a sick person." Hearing about my mother's illness didn't unsettle me like when my father was ill. My feelings for my mother have truly cooled. I'm no longer afraid of her. I don't even want to complain. I just feel sorry for her. I despise my mother, thinking that I never want to become like her even when I grow up. I was surprised at how coldly I responded, wondering if I could really say such cold things. I got a smartphone, and we barely use the home phone anymore, so it might be disconnected soon. So this is really goodbye. As I said this, my mother started to panic. "Don't say that, please," she pleaded. "Then give me your smartphone number." "I can't. There's really no one to take care of me, no one to support me financially," I replied. "Then I'll contact someone who might take care of you." My words seemed to give her some hope as her voice brightened a bit. Hearing her hopeful tone made me sigh. I asked for the name of the hospital and hung up immediately. I called my aunt and told her about the conversation. When I told my aunt about the conversation, she was concerned for me, but she praised me for handling it well and being able to respond on my own. And when I made a request, my aunt agreed and immediately contacted someone for me. It was the person I suggested to my mother as a potential caretaker. A few days later, I noticed the home phone ringing continuously. I suspected it was my mother and chose not to answer. The ringing continued until night, even after my aunt and uncle came home. When I told them about the incessant ringing, my aunt sighed and answered the phone. As expected, it turned out to be my mother on the phone, and my aunt was engaged in a heated discussion with her. It seemed like my mother was persistently asking to speak with me. My aunt was refusing her request over the phone. I could hear my mother's voice panicking about her brother coming, wondering why I had contacted him. The person I asked my aunt to contact was my mother's brother. I remembered hearing that my mother always had trouble dealing with her brother. He's a very stubborn man, passionate about duty and kindness, making my mother's affair unacceptable to him. After hearing from my aunt, he was furious and said he would pick her up immediately. Their reunion after many years turned out to be terrible, and it seemed my mother's anger was now directed towards us. My aunt was handling the call, but unusually, my uncle told her to let him take over. My uncle is a very gentle person, so I wondered if he could handle my mother. But as soon as he took the phone, his expression was fierce. "Oh, when he gets angry, he's scarier than me," my aunt whispered to me. "Enough. If you want to talk so badly, I'll come there. I'll make you apologize to Olivia right in front of her. Sick or not, you better be prepared," my uncle roared, and my mother gasped and hung up. After the call, my uncle was back to his usual smiling self. It seems true that the kindest people can be the scariest when angry. Later, I heard my mother was taken to her brother's house. It turned out that my mother's illness was minor, and she was able to be discharged from the hospital soon. She was forced to live and work on her brother's farm, helping with farm work. While living there, she had expected a lavish life with her affair partner, but instead, she reluctantly worked on the farm, squeezed by her brother. She couldn't shop for brand items anymore, and wore old clothes given by villagers. As for me, the legal process was completed, and I became the child of my aunt and uncle. They threw a celebration party for me, and I laughed more than ever. To my delight, I found out I would have a younger brother or sister next year. I was incredibly happy and excited. I'm determined to cherish my family from the bottom of my heart. That's what I truly believe.